Today on the podcast, you'll hear my interview with Wesley Knust, a music educator and portfolio career musician based in Metro Detroit. Wesley Knust was a client of mine in the Happiest Musician Accelerator a year or two ago, and it has been delightful to watch his career evolve into something that works exquisitely well for him and serves all of the people around him. For him to find his audience, for him to find his perfect demographic and his best way of teaching, and his own happiest creative career, his own thriving creative career, has been delicious to watch. And I know that you will really enjoy hearing this episode about what it looks like to pivot again, to figure out over time what works for you. Wesley Knust is an accomplished music educator and portfolio musician based in Metro Detroit. Chosen by Marquis as one of their Who's Who in Music Education in 2024, he is the owner of Wesley Knust Music Studio, where he teaches private and group piano lessons. He also serves as the music director at First United Methodist Church of Mount Clemens and teaches music at Schoolhouse Montessori Academy. Passionate about inspiring students of all ages, Wesley is dedicated to sparking a lifelong love of music making in everyone he teaches. Wesley Knust, welcome to Crushing Classical.
Thanks for having me, Jennet.
I am so excited to speak with you about the ways that you are morphing your own portfolio career to create the life you want to be living and the things you want to be doing. And I want to talk with you about the way that you are supporting your students, both within the schools and outside of the schools. You're really doing some innovative stuff. But can we just get started by having you introduce yourself to the listeners and tell a little bit of the story that brings us to where you are right now in your career?
Absolutely. So I'm Wesley Knust. I am a pianist and a piano teacher and music educator based in Metro Detroit. I got my start in music in fifth grade band playing trumpet. And then in fifth grade, my mom saw a keyboard, a Casio keyboard on QVC, and said, "If I bought this for you, would you teach yourself to play it?" And I said, "Sure, why not?" And I don't think either of us thought I would, but I did. I grew up in a very rural part of Michigan with not a lot of access to piano teachers. And so I was the nerd in sixth grade who sat in my room at home and geeked out over the piano and music theory and composition and all these things, and never had a piano teacher until I got to college. And so I went to college at Saginaw Valley State for my undergrad, thinking I was going to be a band director because I grew up with the mindset that you could either be a school music teacher or a classical performer. I didn't know there was anything else you could do. Mm-hmm. And I knew I didn't want to be in the orchestra. I love orchestra music, but I knew it wasn't for me. And so once I got to college, I realized there are so many different things you could do in music. There are more possibilities. And I realized that maybe being a band director wasn't for me. And then I thought I would be a music theorist. And then I was really going into that route and was doing some independent studies and different theory topics. And my senior year of undergrad, one of my theory professors pulled me aside and said, "The academic job market is dead. And while you would do well in a graduate program, there's not going to be any work for you after you graduate." And so, as tempting as that offer sounded, I decided to pivot. And I taught some private lessons and did some freelance gigging for a couple of years. And then I did a Master of Music Education online through the University of Florida. And while I was doing that, I really focused on developing things for my piano students. And my graduate research was all about incorporating composition and improvisation into lessons. And then after that, I was doing some private piano teaching as I've been doing all along. I've done music ministry along the way. And a couple of years ago, I decided to start school teaching, and I teach at a Montessori school. So I work with toddlers and preschoolers and K through 6. And they're because it's a Montessori school, they are mixed age groups. So the preschoolers are ages 3 through 6. And then the elementary students, there's 1st through 6th grade all in one classroom. And so about a year ago, back in the fall, I should also say, my school has two campuses. And the first year I taught at one campus. And now this year I teach at both of them. And so this year, one of my school directors came to me and said, would you be willing to offer after school programs through your business? And I thought, yes, that's perfect, because I've been wanting to do group programs for a while. When I lived in a previous city, I taught at a music school that specialized in group piano classes and really fell in love with group teaching. But after I left there and started my own studio, I never really had the space or the means to make it happen on my own. And so it's just one of these things that kind of went away for a while. And so I didn't think I could do group piano at that time back in the fall, because I didn't have a lot of instruments. And the school has one piano, but it's in a room that I didn't have access to after school. And so I didn't think it would be possible. And so I offered a world music class for 7 weeks, and that went over pretty well. And then as that was going on, I talked to my school director at my other campus, and she was also willing to let me do after school programming. And I thought, well, I could invest in another keyboard or two and start some piano programs. And then I realized I don't need multiple pianos to teach preschool piano, because you don't need more than one preschooler playing the piano at one time. So the school does 8-week sessions of classes. And this last session, I did a boomwhacker class at one campus, and then I did piano classes at the other campus. And both of those went very well. But as a piano player, that's where my passion is. My passion isn't boomwhackers, it's pianos. And so I'm now offering piano classes at both campuses. And this week is the first week of this session where I'm offering piano at both. And I was a little nervous to offer piano at the second campus because I haven't taught there as long. The parents don't know me as well, and they haven't seen me play piano, so they don't really know me as a pianist like my other campus does. But the response has been overwhelming. I offered one session on Tuesdays and thinking I would get maybe 6 kids. I want to keep it around 6 per session. And now about 25% of the students at the school have enrolled in the piano class. We have about 100 kids, and there are 25 students enrolled. I'm offering the classes on 3 days a week in 4 different sessions. So
amazing.
So I was so nervous to offer it, but the response has been way better than I ever thought it could be.
Incredible. So, like, there are so many threads from this story that I would love to pull on. And one of the first things that I noticed was, like, first of all, I'm imagining like 5th grade Wesley, like alone in his room, 6th grade Wesley, like teaching himself piano and theory and composition and like figuring it out sufficiently to where you are now a professional pianist, like performer and teacher, and like that you were able to like end up in a college program that was appropriate. Like, this is amazing. And from there, I hear you making sure that all of these like Montessori kids have access to the piano teacher you didn't have.
Yes.
Which just feels enormous. Like, it's a gift that you are giving to the community. Are preschoolers your most ideal students? I ask this with a smile in my voice because preschoolers are not my most ideal students. But what's my point? My point is the gift you are giving here is actually astounding to make this happen for so many people. And like after school hours when you could be not doing that.
Yeah, the ideal student thing is interesting because my thought about that has really evolved over the years. My senior year of high school, when I thought I was going to be a band director, again, rural area that I'm from, my school was so small, we were K through 12 in one building. And so the days that my band director couldn't be at school, she would get me excused from my other classes. And while there was a substitute in the room, I would direct the rehearsals. And the only class I wouldn't teach was elementary music because I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with these kids. I don't know anything about elementary music. I play the trumpet. And so it's really interesting how much things have evolved since that point. I look back at that and laugh now because that's what I specialize in, is early childhood and elementary. And so then when I was in college and I thought I would go into grad school for theory, I thought, well, I'm going to work with adults. That's my ideal student. And then I started teaching private brass lessons, and then I was working with middle schoolers and high schoolers. And I'm like, well, this is my ideal student. And then I started doing group piano at a previous music school that really specialized in early child group classes. And so I gradually worked from thinking adults were my ideal students all the way down to early childhood. I went down in age level each time I did a pivot. And there's been joy in each of those things. But I think for me, the ideal student is eager to learn and wants to be there. And it turns out preschoolers are really eager to learn and really want to learn the piano. And so it's been a great fit. And so I never thought they would be, but I think preschoolers and elementary students are my ideal students.
That's fantastic. I love it. And like a message that I want people to hear from that is like, you are not bound by the decisions that you made when you were 18 years old, and you are not bound by the decisions you made or the thoughts that you had when you were 24 years old. Like, things get to evolve and you get to discover different directions and different passions as you go along, which is fantastic to hear. I wanted to ask about this because, we worked together in my Happiest Musician program, Happiest Musician Accelerator program, like a year or two ago. And the Wesley that I remember at the beginning of that session was in a really different place than like this happy man I'm seeing in front of me here. Like, I remember a lot of overwork, a lot of burnout, a lot of there is not enough money, there is not enough opportunity. Like, I don't see how to make these things happen. And the transformation has been really impressive, what I'm seeing. Will you talk a little bit about that? What you like, how this evolution has happened like so quickly over the last couple of years?
Absolutely, yes. So I've been a fan of the Crushing Classical podcast for a while now, so it's a little surreal to be on it now as a guest. And so when I came to work with you, I was in a very different place. I had just started school teaching at the Montessori school, and I was doing private lessons, and I had my church job, and then I was freelancing as a pianist, and it was very overwhelming. And I think the biggest element of overwhelm was the school job, because that was the new thing I was doing. And at that point, I hadn't really settled into how I wanted to teach the students. I hadn't really gotten to know them that well yet. I didn't have a set curriculum I was basing things on. And so it occupied so much of my time that it just wasn't tenable at that point. And so when I came to the Happiest Musician Accelerator program, I was hoping to create a group program of some sort, thinking that would be how I would move away from school teaching. Little did I know that I would end up doing that while being a school teacher. And that's what's given me the gift of being able to do that, is being a school teacher. So it's been very interesting. During our time working together, you gave us so many great resources and ideas, like thinking really in depth about why you do what you do. What are the whys behind your teaching? Scheduling things, thinking about things in terms of quarters, and thinking about things at a CEO level, and not just being down in the nitty gritty of doing the teaching. But how can you step back from that and think about why you're doing what you're doing, and identifying things like your zone of genius. What are the things you are best at doing? What are the things you're good at doing? What are you okay at doing? And really taking a step back to look at those things. There were so many great resources that you gave us. And I still, at that time, I was in such a place where I knew I wanted to do group teaching, but I didn't know what that looked like. And so I thought maybe I'll do something online with adult piano students. And then I started getting in touch with a local homeschool group, and I was going to offer them ukulele lessons, group ukulele classes, because that was something I was doing with my school students. And so I reached out to the Facebook group, and I reached out to the admin of the group, and she was like, yeah, absolutely, join the group and let's talk about it. And she was very into it, and there was some interest from students. And then on a personal note, at the same time all of this was happening, with talking with the homeschool students, being in the Happiest Musician Accelerator group, my mother passed away during this time. And so that was another element of complete and total overwhelm. And so after that happened, I got back in touch with the homeschool families, and there had been a few weeks in between, so I think I had lost some interest from that. And then I had a really hard time finding a location to offer the class, because I teach piano lessons out of my home, so it's not really designed to have a group of students all in one place. I reached out to local libraries that weren't able to give me space, and the other venues I looked at, like churches, charged too much money that I couldn't offer the class at a reasonable price to students and still make a profit myself. And then I kind of let that idea go for a few months. And then I brought the idea to my church where I work and I'm a member, and they said that I could use the church for free to host such a class. And then that kind of reinvigorated me, and I was advertising it, and no one signed up for the paid class. I had 3 students sign up for a free workshop, and then one of them showed up. So that didn't quite go the way I thought. And so I really thought I would just sort of let go of the dream of doing group teaching. Maybe it's just not in the cards for me anymore. And then once my school director offered me the opportunity to do that at school, I realized that you gave me all these resources I could use to figure out how to best go about that. I can look at what are the things I'm really good at? What's my zone of genius? How can I look at the scheduling of these things? How can I look at why I want to do this? What is the purpose of this class? So those are the gifts that you and your program brought to me in my teaching that have allowed me to be where I'm at in my career today. So thank you very much for that, Jennet.
You are so welcome, Wesley. And oh my gosh, like that, I don't think I even knew all of the ins and outs of that story. So thank you for sharing, and thank you for the kind words about my program. One of the things that I really heard in what you just described was the importance of building relationships. Like you in the homeschool community, which didn't end up working out, but like it's not a shameful thing to try things and have them not work. You were the one who reached out. You made contact. You made a connection. You had conversations with the parents and the admins of this group. You had conversations with the libraries, with the churches. Like you were looking actively for how can we make this work? What is this going to look like? And when it like didn't quite come to fruition and one person showed up for your free workshop, like that's a learning, that's data. But then it was in having conversations with your own administrators, with the people who like you saw an opportunity and you weren't afraid to say, okay, here's a thing I could do. Here's a thing that I would like to do. Here's a thing that we could make happen together for the students. And I guess I just want to point out to the listeners, especially that like these are not getting yourself into a beautiful situation like you've got now, where you've got a tremendous number of people like wanting to do group classes in the way that you want to teach them, and in a way that is easy and convenient and fits for your schedule and your life. In order to have that, it is not the case usually that people are going to be like knocking down your door saying, "Hi, would you like to show up and teach in exactly the way you want to teach, the exact demographic that you want to work with, conveniently after school where you already are?" Like you have to seek out those opportunities. And by doing that, like I can't even express really how much happier you look and seem in your way of being than a year and a half ago when we worked together. And that's amazing.
Thank you. Yes. And that's something I forgot to mention. One of the things you told us about in the Happiest Musician Accelerator program, you were talking about offers. And one of the things you said was, who is someone you can reach out to this week that might be interested in your offer and have a conversation with them? Again, talking about the importance of these relationships. And that's something I think that's been my biggest takeaway professionally from the success I've had recently is relationships are so important. And that's the other thing I forgot to mention as well. After my mother passed away, I did step away from school teaching for a couple of months, not really sure what I was going to do besides teaching lessons and doing church and freelancing. And then I decided to step back into school teaching. They hired me back at my school. And I realized when I came back, the connections I had with my coworkers, with the administrators, with my students, how much they missed me, how much I missed them. And I realized what a gift being a school teacher really is in a way that I didn't realize when I was so overwhelmed that fall. And so I think the biggest takeaway for anyone listening to this episode is lean into the relationships you have. Think about people in your life and how you can serve them. And that is the key to success I've found.
Oh, sing it, Wesley. That's fantastic. So, now where you are at now, like you've got all of these groups that you're running, curriculums that you're building, ways that you are supporting the students. What, if I can ask, Um, what is your ambition for the way this program evolves? Like, what are you working on now in terms of building or delivering or supporting these students?
In the short term, we have our end of school spring concerts in May, at the end of May, and some of the students are going to be performing piano solos on the concert. So for this next 8-week session, we are working with some of them on preparing to perform on the concert, in addition to singing with their classes. And so that's the short term goal, is preparing some of these students for that experience. One of the awesome things about being at a Montessori school, where I have students from the time they're toddlers till they're potentially all the way to sixth grade, is that I get to be with them and help them grow musically through basically all of early childhood. And so I think that is my ambition at this point, is to be with them side by side, helping them grow as musicians through that entire experience.
Wow. So suddenly, like in middle school, there's going to be this entire crop of children who are like who have a musical understanding, who have had experience performing, who have had experience collaborating with each other, who have had experience like getting in touch with the both the intellectual and the emotional components of music making. What a gift you are giving to this community.
Thank you. And that's so important to me, is that music should be social. Especially research shows that for early childhood, the best music education takes place in small groups. So that's one of the big benefits of a program like this. Also, I feel like music making connects us to our humanity in ways that other things can't quite reach. It gives us that intangible connection to our soul. And I feel like in a time that is so fraught worldwide, and in a time where we're also disconnected online and we're all away from each other in so many ways, I think that is one of the most important things I can offer children, is that music helps them stay in touch with their humanity and be who they truly are and express who they truly are.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing to hear. Amazing to hear. You know, Wesley, I'm going to tap your expertise here for a minute, because I talk to people all the time. Actually, they'll get on discovery calls with me and say, I'm a pianist. I would love to do group classes, but I don't have 6 pianos. I don't know how I could possibly ever do that. I don't know how I could do it online. I don't know like what a piano class would look like, but I do want that kind of group experience for my students. Can you like talk a little bit about how you manage a room full of elementary school students with only 1 piano, and how you make that valuable to people? Like, can we just
Ab-
literally have a lesson on that?
Absolutely, yeah. And so this was a big learning curve for me in changing my mindset, because the music school where I taught previously, it was children and their parents after school. And so parents would bring their children, and then each child is at their own keyboard, and their parent is kind of helping them, coach them based on what I'm teaching. In this context that I'm in now, I don't have parents. It's me and up to 6 children at a time. And especially at the preschool age, you can't have 6 preschoolers on their own piano, because that is a recipe for chaos. Um, so the way I teach group classes, especially at this young age, we start off by warming up different body parts. Like we'll do shoulders up and down. We'll do our wrists, like we'll do wrist up, wrist down. We'll manipulate our fingers in different ways, just warming up body parts that we use to play the instrument. I think one of the big advantages, one of the big things that other piano teachers can use, is elements of movement. So while one student is at the piano with you and they're playing a piece, the other students could be maybe doing movement with scarves and feeling the beat, or feeling the macro beat and the micro beat. Or another thing I do quite a bit is I will have students do little worksheets while they're taking turns at the piano. And you can also mix this up depending on how big the class is. For my larger classes, I will rotate what they're doing. So one of them's at the piano, maybe 2 or 3 of them are doing some movement activities along with the music that's being played at the piano. And then the rest of the students are doing worksheets. And then we all sort of cycle through that one at a time. As far as classroom management is concerned, I have found that children love stickers, and they are very motivating to get students to do what you want them to do. So that is my other big secret weapon, is stickers.
That translates a little bit less well to like my adult Zoom groups, but I love that. And
Yeah.
actually, I'm really inspired hearing you talk about that because my own imagination um, did not go to, oh, it would be fine to have like a group of people who are doing three different activities at the same time and sort of rotating between them. Like the best I had in my mind was we're going to teach listening skills, which is like significantly hard for toddlers or for preschoolers. Um, so like I love that. That was a really helpful, a really helpful share.
Thank you. Yeah, movement is so important in how children learn music. And
Of
so
course.
it's so valuable for them to do movement activities while listening to someone else play. But you're not wrong though. The listening thing is also important. We occasionally will do things at the end of class where we all try to sit and listen to each other play something a little bit. And that has various levels of success depending on the day and the group of kids.
Hmm.
But it's a skill you have to start working on somewhere. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And what I never heard you say, oh, some of them are on iPads, like doing other like activities, because this is a live in person present, like training presence as much as anything else. And like in this AI generated world, it is so important and valuable.
Amen to that.
All right. Amazing. Um, Tell me, are you uh are you filled up with the activities you're doing right now, or if you, this is the place in the program where I would ask people to like drop links. Do you want people following you? Do you want people like knocking on your door, applying to get into your group sessions? Are you working with people? What does that look like for you?
Yeah. So right now, I have a couple of spaces available for our online private students. In fact, most of my private students are online. I have very few that actually come to my home. And so, if anyone is interested in piano lessons at any level and they have a piano and a willingness to learn, they can reach out. They can go to my Facebook page, Wesley Knust Music Studio, or they can go to my website, wesleyknust.com, and they can contact me through those channels.
Phenomenal. Phenomenal. Wesley, this has been a delightful conversation. I have learned things. It's inspiring to hear about your journey and how you are like making yourself be the happiest musician. Is there anything else that you would like to share here that I didn't make space for in this conversation?
I don't think so. I think the big takeaways that I would want people to get from this episode are lean into the relationships you already have in your life and your career and see how you can serve those people to start. And also, as we talked about today, my career has looked like many different things at many different times. So don't be afraid to experiment. As you say, it's all experiments. And my whole career has been all experiments. I've done a million different things, I feel like, in the last 10 years. So don't be afraid to get out there and try things. You might really like some things you didn't expect. There might be things you try to offer that fail, and you just pick yourself up and keep going. Like I think about the ukulele class I offered and how that didn't take off. Um, so I could have easily said when I was asked by my administrator, "Do you want to offer group classes?" I could have said no because that's not been my experience that they work. And I would not be in this place today if I had that mindset at that time. So always push forward, always be looking ahead.
Amazing. Thank you so much for talking with me today.
Thank you, Jennet.